Welcome to the Amatoria podcast with Marvin Allen and Justin Dong. Join us for a journey through the art of love across the world, guided by timeless wisdom and lived experience.
This week's guest is Alejandro Ayala. Alejandro has been studying seduction and dating for over 20 years and has been coaching for over the last 10. He's helped tons of men all across the world with approaching women in an honest way, but is also aware of their deep sexual psychology and evolutionary psychology. And his stuff actually works. I've been in the bar with him in Bucharest, Romania. The guy is as real as they come. And he had many things to share. And there are things that you do not hear in the generic, surface level, shallow dating advice that is out there in the current YouTube and internet landscape.
Yeah, we spent some interesting nights with Alejandro in Bucharest, and he's really a master of his craft. He's been doing it for so long, and it really shows in the way especially in the way he explains really complex ideas and concepts to guys that resonate with their frame of reference. So that's a really powerful skill that he has to break down complex things and just give it to you straight.
Yeah. And there's a beautiful element of deep human psychology and understanding why things work, but it comes from an honest place. So there's a practical and a thing that gets you results, but in a way that actually leaves the girl better off than you found her. And so if you're interested in psychology and understanding what actually makes a girl attracted to you at a biological level and don't want to go around being confused, reading a bunch of books that you might or might not know if they're going to help, paying thousands of dollars for boot camps and things for what? You're going to have a massive transformation in 3 days or 4 days of boot camps. This is a great starting point for that. So...
Enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast, Alejandro.
Thank you for having me, Justin and Marvin.
So I would like you to begin by, who are you, man? And because I've met you in person and we've been out gaming in the bar in Bucharest in Negroni. Marvin was there, Stan was there. You're the most consistent motherfucker that I've ever seen. If you see a girl and you like her, you go. But I imagine it's because you've been doing this a long time. And you've been here through all the phases of the evolution of dating and relationships, because you've been an international coach in this for a long time. So I'd be curious, what has your journey been like and what is your methodology? Who do you draw inspiration from? Where did you start? And you've helped hundreds of men all across the world. And you specialize in approach, and boot camps and things like that, right? So who are you, man?
Yes. Yeah. So, again, as I mentioned, you guys, I'm very grateful to be here and also share what I would love to share and also what's needed to be shared to others too that, doesn't even know about me. How do I begin? I could say so how I started this journey was almost 20 years ago, and it was early 20s, right? And going to college at the time, and I just wanted to improve myself because just like most people, you might hear the stories too, because my story is your guys' story too, where it's how do I communicate not just with women but also with others too, because in my childhood background it was pretty rough, going through some violent environments and being antisocial, and even if I had friends at the time, yet I was not being as a kid as I wanted to be, and so there was some blocks, meaning that as growing up, staying in the car for 4 hours in the kids' party, 4 hours in the car, listening to the radio.
Wow.
Weekly Top 40. I remember that. I still I remember everything. The list goes down for 4 hours while my friends were out playing, invited me to come out, and there was something in me I couldn't come out. Didn't realize that would affect me as growing up. Because when I go to say, if I really want to better myself and break the shell, this whatever this is, this barrier that I had in me that I didn't know at the time, I had to use a lot of willpower. And so I used to live kind of close to my hometown, but I used to drive to like major cities, like 3-4 hours away, and just really just get out of the car, literally, because I was breaking those anchors as a kid. So I was like, I want to get out, but I don't know how, and so I had to use some willpower. Did that, and as soon as I said hi, then it was like very liberating. Like that was like a big win for me, right? And then I didn't know that would lead me to some good trouble, right? As soon as people respond pretty well to my highs. And so I remember that like how things start clicking for me. Like I didn't know the things I was doing was like very direct. And like one of my openers was literally because I noticed that even Latinos do this. But by the way, though, just because I'm Latino doesn't mean that I'm a because by default a great communicator or seducer, nothing like that. Because there's a lot of Latinos that they really don't know what they're doing. And I was like one of them, right? But there was part of me too, like I seen in Latin dances, people just like it's like they assume the response will go well, but usually they have to have an excuse why they're talking to them, which was a dance. So usually I go to dance like in nightclubs, go to a girl directly, but I set the attention there, looking at her. I don't really have to wait for her to look at me. I just go for what I want. Told her, hey, like it was like the cheesiest thing, but as long as the attention was there, was basically like it's like, hi, what's your name? But I smile, and there's some communication there. And she told me her name, and I was like, okay, cool. My name is Alejandro. And I was like, and there was just a pause, there's this tension there. And then I go, let's go dance. Like, and she's like, okay. and then from there, when we go dance, that's when I wanted to see like how we are. Like there's also communication. Like is she flinching? Is she digging it? Is she getting close to me? If I pull her in, is she stepping back? And now she's giving me some indicators that I was like, she's wanting pull back. Then I respect that, and then I go, all right, have a good night, whatever, like that. But if I feel like it's on, then the conversation, like the verbal communication comes in, right? But still, I needed some like I want to understand more about like connecting with them on a deeper level, right? And so, oh man, just taking me back memory lane is so fun. So like, I remember I bought my first ebook. This guy named Maris Perazzelli. I don't know if he's still around, but like I never seen. He doesn't show his face or nothing. I didn't even think like, oh, this is a scam. I just bought a book, and I bought the book, applied it, and it started to work. And then I was wondering if this guy was real because he offered like some email coaching. Paid for that, and he responded to me. Yeah, all email, and then and it helped me out, and I was like, wow. And he helped me out in different areas too. And so then I was like, wow, so this is actually a thing. Like there's actually like a dating coach out there, right? But he didn't call himself a dating coach. He just said like how to be great with women and people in general. And then I still committed to go travel different cities and just expose myself out there in these unfamiliar environments. And I'll touch base on that, why it was very important. Because I was doing whatever I want. I was doing it out of like growth, but also just to have fun and also to build memories too. Because most of my friends, they like going out, but they don't do like the things I was doing. So I was like, I didn't have an experience. And so, so then what happened was like, I bought my first boot camp, and there was this guy, he's not around anymore. And then they would probably put him as a category as like pick parts, right? And the things that I've seen, and by the way, his name is Matador. And so, well, that was his name, in that community. I know his real name, but I don't know if it's safe to say it. But like, he was an associate with, fellow associate with Mystery. Everyone knows Mystery, right? And so then, I got coached by him. Now, it wasn't about like meeting girls. Like, I mean, yeah, it was about meeting girls, right? But there was other things I wanted to see. Like, I wanted to see like the impossible, right? That makes it possible. but I'm also going to apply it. So I'm not paying just to see it. And the things I seen, I was like, wow, like that's amazing. And but what was really cool was I came in this team. They really made me include me in like brothers. It was really, really cool. I think that was like what I was missing too, was that brotherhood, right? Even if it was during a seminar, it was 4 days. Still, I just wanted to, just to, communicate like my vulnerability or anything that's exposed that comes out of me, right? Because approaching that actually, it brings the vulnerability out of you, right? That's what most guys don't do it. They just run away from that vulnerability. And, hopefully women could respect that, if a guy approached you, even it could be cheesy or something like that, maybe it was scripted, but rest assured was that he's expressing his vulnerability. So that's on the line for him. So, but that's why I love women, that they can at least acknowledge it, even if she, even I don't believe rejection, but if she rejects the approach, still she could respect that. She's a friend for life for me. And so, but yeah, I remember I did that. I was one of the few guys in the group that really committed to, approach. Like whatever they told me, I did it. Right. And then I applied my own things. But I think my takeaways was that like I never approached like big, like tall people, like who I think who could like beat me up. And like guys with like a really gorgeous girl. And it was cool because I remember this guy named Knack. He was a fellow coach with Misery and Matador. And he reminds me like, you guys that live in the US, it reminds me like those typical redneck cowboy guys, big husky guy with the cowboy hat. And I was like, and I grew up with rednecks, even though with gangsters, it was like a random thing in my childhood, but I'm familiar with rednecks. So it was one night and he goes, Alejandro, like, and I haven't warmed up, and he was like, Alejandro, like, I remember you told me one of your goals, and that was the goal, like talk to like strangers, but people who I think could beat me up. What gorgeous girl, and then I said, look, I'm not here trying to steal girls, but just to be friends with them, and then see what happens. So he's like, are you ready for this? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, before I turn around, say this line, and then I was like, okay, and I thought it was really cheesy, and I was like, okay. And he goes, you ready? Okay, now turn around, approach him. And then I looked, there was this big, tall black guy. He was like 6'8". Like he could be in the football, like NFL, or like a pro wrestler, something like that, with this gorgeous blonde. And I turned around, I was like, Knack, what the hell are you doing? Like I'm not here. I flew all across the country for, to have experience, but not to get my ass kicked. And then he's like, don't worry, I got your back. What? And he's a big guy too. He's like, I got your back, don't worry about that. And I was like, all right, turn around. And then I looked at him, took me 5 seconds, like, I can't do this. Fuck, I get my ass kicked. And then so I go, Knack, I can't do it. You wonder why I didn't have that much confidence to talk to him yet? It wasn't really because, well, it was not because of the image of the guy. It was really because of the line. I was like, how can that be like relatable or like have some reference in the situation? And the line was like, who will win in the fight between a bear or a lion? It was like, to me, it was like the dumbest thing. And I was like, but then I had to tell myself, like, wait a minute, I never said this line, never had experience before. Fuck it. And if I get my ass kicked, I get my ass kicked. I'm gonna ask for my fucking refund or give me a half back or whatever. And I went up to them and I said that line. Who will win the fight between a bear or a lion? And then the guy looked at me like, he's like, what the fuck? Like, but he smiled and laughed. And then I looked at the girl and she just get it. She just got it. Like she knew what was going on. And then she respected that. But she didn't say nothing. She didn't say like, oh, that's a pickup line. She just nodded like, and so then God bless her heart, she helped me out. And then so the guy didn't know how to respond. And he's like, it's just a bear. I go, okay. And then she goes, no, a lion, blah, 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 a lion. Like that. And then they're kind of arguing. And then she was like on my side and we're just talking, whatever, like that. And now in my mind, and so even though I was very like grounded, but in my mind's like, holy shit, man, thank God, like fuck it, I got my ass kicked. And so then yeah, everything went well. And then what really blew me away was like I don't know, things went automatic for me, whereas I just say, hey, you guys are really cool, whatever, I'll invite you guys, blah blah blah. And I looked at her and then I go, yeah, just give me your number. And there's no Instagram back in the days. Maybe MySpace back in the days. But all I said was, give me your number, and I bet you guys. I could just ask him, but because her and I just get it, like, well, she got it. She knew what was going on, and she's like, yeah. She gave me her number, and then the guy was like shocked. And here I am, like, I gotta walk away before it starts to process in his mind, like, hey, what the fuck just happened, right? you know. And so then I was shocked. And then, Nak just gave me this big old hug. I was like, fuck, this is so cool. I don't care if she flakes me or nothing, I don't care. Like, I don't know. I was like blown away, right? And then from there, yeah. And then I just had like a wonderful weekend from that boot camp. And ever since then, that really got me into this rabbit hole of, it's not just about women. It was like really just having new experiences, break my barriers. And also it was about like, I had these mental challenges. So I overcame them. And so then, I didn't know that a lot of things that I was doing, whether it was some mistakes or achievements, it was relatable to like brain-based exercises to improve you. And even has to do with some neuroscience with it as well. And so then from there, I decided to go ahead and do my own thing. Like, I didn't want to do my own thing yet because I was just like, I'm not gonna lie, I was being a little selfish. Like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this stuff to myself. I'm gonna take over the city I'm at. you know, I don't know. I wasn't interested in meeting like these layers. They call it layers back then. It kind of freaked me out. I was like, it's too much. But I just want to be that guy, just like, whether I invite like a new group of friends or they invited me that I just barely met, then I just know what's going on and how to like engineer the whole situation in a very mindful way. And then, but it got to a point that I think like a few times that it was coaches out there, just big name players that showed up in the city. Like I moved to Seattle and there was like these boot camps, and then they showed up in the clubs I was at. And then from there, I'm saying this in a very respectful way because, a coach could have like a bad night. But when I realized like, oh, like it's like on TV, not on TV, like on YouTube, they look like God. And them too, they can have like mistakes and have rejections too. And I was like, and also I was like, well, why? I shouldn't be comparing myself. So then from there, that's when I started my own thing. I was doing being more local in Seattle, and then traveling to San Diego, and like where I'm at right now. And yeah, and then I think I hate to say it though, but sometimes I check myself like, where am I at? If I'm just a local coach, and trying to be quiet as possible. Even I had like a website at the time. How do I do this? Because I had jobs where like, trying to keep my private life, preventable to spread out to like my fellow associates out there. And but from time to time, I guess like I would have like a one-on-one while these guys were having like boot camps, and it was really cool. It was really cool. Like my guy who I was coaching one-on-one was having fun. That's the most important thing, having fun. Having these connections with people, and whereas the other like these guys in boot camps were just having like a rough time and not having fun. So then that's when I was like, you know what, like why I'm not up there with them. But that's like a different conversation. There's a story that it resolved. But then from there, that's like, you know what, that's cool. And I ran into some of these guys later on in my coaching journey, like in different countries too. And then I'll give them my respects, but I don't want to remind them like where I met them, like meaning like somewhere in Seattle, San Diego. I came across some of these guys like in Barcelona or whatever. So, but at the same time, I didn't want to be like a fanboy. I was like, hey, what's up? Great content. doing good, blah blah blah. Even though that I seen them, they had like a hidden camera, like a guy with a hidden camera was
The
recording.
backpack. Yeah.
Yeah, or something else too. They use some things like they have something around their neck too. Mm-hmm.
Assistants carrying the.
Wow.
So it sounds like I'm hearing your beautiful stories, and you had that first initial taste of success, as opposed to all your limiting beliefs from before. Then you kind of figured things out for yourself in Seattle, in San Diego, in these places that you were. So I'm curious because you've been here since the start for like 20 years or so, right? How has the dating and relationships scene evolved in your mind with social media, with AI, with all these things on the horizon? Because you were there at the start of the game and you're still doing it.
Yes, that's a good question because I feel that my advantage, they also could be a disadvantage because I noticed my disadvantage, but at least my advantage is that I could still be more more present at the moment when I'm interacting with people, a person or people. Whereas a lot of people these days, they use most of their, if anything, they use a lot of their interactions now by mobile, texting, even like video
Dating
calling.
apps.
Yeah, like compared to how it was back then and it is now, like mostly people had to text before they actually make the initial call. Whereas back in the days, we just call. And till this day, I make a call. And now, this is not an opinion. This is actually studies been shown that, and it's a takeaway for you guys listening to this, is that if you call a girl, she will respond to you and respect you a lot more quicker than by texting. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yes, because there's something in their brain that is activated when you communicate with them verbally, right? By text, there is no. Keep in mind, because on the flip side, it works well for men. It's very interesting because we're very logical. Okay, this goes with storytelling too, by the way, which sticks with communication, and I devote my life on communication too. Is that storytelling, which is great. You could be a storyteller. Doesn't mean you have to make up stories if you're talking about the stories of your life. It's very easy. You like you guys. I know you guys. You guys live an adventurous life. You guys travel, having experiences. Though if I'm not saying you don't have this, but in general speaking, if a person tweaks and knows how to storytell very well, then that a woman could really feel your stories as if she's actually watching the movie, even though technically you're communicating with her. On the flip side, you do that to a guy, it's like part of him's like, just get straight to the point. And I get that a lot. After I come talking to girls, like my female friends, and they just love it. I'm giving them a story. I'm giving them a roller coaster feeling because they just love stories. Because look at what they do when they hang out. The girls hang out. What do? They talk about the stories. Oh, Sherry, guess what happened? Fucking Mark. So he didn't come back home like 3 a.m, blah blah blah. And right, so there's a variety in emotions and things that she's expressing. And then her friends it's like, don't you think he's cheating on do you think he's looking like talking to someone else? Blah blah blah. With some drama, right? The other girls are like, now there's a conspiracy. They're feeling something. There's some drama, right? You put her through a group of guys. You do that. It's kind of boring. Outside, like not you guys, but I'm saying general, like most guys, they just want to know, get straight to the point. I don't want to have these emotions. I just that's why women love movies that like has like the beginning, things are stable, and in the middle, there's some chaos, there's some loss, and then hopefully there's a win. And if there isn't a win, they get really bummed out. They cry about it. Well, most guys, it's like, oh, okay, it's like, I just want to know if he's going to make it or not. Okay, he's having a problem. Did he make it or not? Oh, he didn't make it. Okay, cool. Well, it's an okay movie, right? So it's really interesting. Like when I talk to my female friends a good amount of time, like say I'm consistent, checked on my friend Vanessa, check my friend Amber, blah blah blah, right? And not only that, I don't tell them too much stories because it's all about them. I check on them, and if they want to share me a story, cool. And I ask them some specific questions, cool. And then now, like say I'm transitioning later on in the day, I'm hanging out with some of the boys. I have to like change my tonality a bit because it's not like I'm talking to them like gay, but it's kind of like in that frequency, like I'm talking like a woman. Because I just got done talking to several girls that I like. It's very like it's a subconscious competence, meaning that I am giving them I'm storytelling them in a way that I like to do it. But it's a lot of women resonate that because there's a variety of emotions, feelings. They have images, right? Because metaphors hits the subconscious mind. That goes with men too, but on a logical perspective, most guys don't want that. They just want to get straight to the point. Yes.
So it sounds like your approach is very psychology based. Go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to hear more about because you mentioned it in the beginning that in the beginning it wasn't only about meeting women, but it sounds a bit like you had a kind of a general social anxiety in that sense. And I'd be very curious to hear more about that and how that relates to your journey as a dating coach in the land of women. How did the social anxiety part of that and in general relating to people evolve in that sense as well?
Yes. I guess like it wasn't the anxiety. It was just more like it was because I didn't have the sensations as the anxiety, like a panic attack or anxiety attack. I didn't have the physical sensations like what people experience. But if I really want to like dig in deep, it was really about the predictability. Now this is going to go like now I'm going to take a bit of a journey in a rabbit hole. So like human beings love predictability. We thrive on predictability. That's what keeps us alive. And so that's your reptilian brain being activated at the highest. This is why it's very hard for people to change. Because when you change, you may be thriving 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You have to think of it like a resistance band. Like you have that resistance, and if you cannot tolerate that tension, you're going to revert back to your old self. That's when the reptilian brain's like, good, thank you, Justin, thank you, Marvin, to going back what we used to do, because that's what keeps us alive. Thank you. But it's not good in this day and age. Yes, the reptilian brain serves well. That's why it kept your ancestors alive and then reproduce, and then generations pass on. Right? They don't come out until everything's safe outside the cave or in the forest. But it's 2025, that's why I had to share with these guys when I coach them. I know it sounds funny, but literally when I communicate with them, part of my conversations, I'm literally talking to the subconscious mind, meaning like, hey, look, it is like, what year it was, but let's say it's 2025. Look, it's 2025. There's no more lions. There's no more bears. Everything's safe. And then they laugh. They go, no, I'm serious. Like everything is safe. If you did something bad, don't worry. We have the laws to protect us, so you can't get beat up. And even if I'm trying to beat you up, I got your back too. But now you won't get stoned like it was back in the days, where if you accidentally meet someone's wife, you get stoned to death. No, and they still laugh about it, but still, like, I had to remind them why, because I'm actually addressing to the reptilian brain, but also to the subconscious mind too. So to going back to your question, it's so I have to be very cautious. What am I experiencing? It wasn't really about the physical sensations I was experiencing. It was just more mental, and I had to remind myself. It's almost I had to do some self-hypnosis, even though I didn't know about hypnosis or self-hypnosis back then. But the thing is, I had to repeat myself over and over and over again, because the more things you tell yourself, or the more information you put in your mind, it does it creates a neural pathway. So imagine like you're hiking, and just like me, when I hike, I like to go to a certain spot that most people don't go, because that's a really cool view. I want to have that experience. But the trail does not lead me to that. Maybe because it's not safe. And so then when I get off trail and I'm going to build a new trail, right? So the first time it's unpredictable. It's scary. Who knows? Maybe like the grass is so high. Who knows? It could be a snake. I don't know. And that's how it is in life. You're doing something new. It's unpredictable. Some people have some physical sensations like, like anxiety or mental barriers. But the more that I go through that path, it builds a trail. And then that trail becomes a neural pathway. Mm-hmm. So like when I have to catch myself sometimes. If I do something new, even outside like seduction, meeting girls, whatever, like say if I went to a business venture or whatever, or investment thing, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to lose a lot of money, whatever like that. And I had to check myself. Hey, I'm just building a new path that I feel that it can improve my life. So as long as I'm aware of it, I had to remind my reptilian brain too, I'm not going to die. It's 2025. So what? It's just money. I could just lose it. But I'm not going to die. I still could breathe. I could eat. I could drink water. I'm good. You see? But then sometimes I had to repeat the same line over and over again, which is kind of like the self-hypnosis thing I had to do.
Wow. A lot of really valuable nuggets in there. It sounds like your approach is a blend of sociological, like fundamental human nature, like how we evolved from primitive to where we are now, and how when you approach a girl, you feel like you might feel in danger if you compare it to like an ancient man, right? But you kind of apply that to modern dating, right? You let your clients know that they're not going to die, but did you die? No, you'll be okay, whether she says yes or no, right? And so there's like but you also talk to men and women differently because you understand how their brain works. And is that part of your approach and methodology then? Just based off of, you don't talk to your bros like you talk to a girl that you really like in the bar, for example, right? How did you learn to discover these things? That shape how you approach these things?
So it comes with patterns. Whenever I feel that I am not getting what I want in a very mindful way, meaning like if there's a pattern and I'm not being happy with this pattern, meaning the outcome. Now, before I continue on, so there's this like, I don't know, I don't agree with this thing when people say like, don't be outcome dependent, whatever. One of my fellow mentors would share with me is that, and he's a respected man too, that said like, you need to know your outcome eventually of anything, right? Because if you're just going to try to sail the wind or go with the wind, in a very practical and very direct way, that's kind of like what homeless people would do. It's like, let me just carry on, see what happens. No, like is it like, okay, so like say I had to, like say before this call earlier, I could just like, and I deal with a lot of traffic, a lot of things, barriers could happen, right? So I had to know like what direction I definitely need to go, and what highway and what streets I need to go to be here on time. Also, like I have to switch rooms here, so I had to know exactly. I'm not just like, oh, I'm just gonna be like some law of attraction type person. Like, oh, I'm just gonna manifest it. No, like there's a part. Like I live in a 3D world. Yes, there's a time and place to do law of attraction, meditate. I do it. I'm all about that. But here and right now, what can I do right now? But also, I need to have a certain direction. So, so when I'm not happy with certain patterns I'm experiencing, then that's when I go, okay, there's got to be a way for this. Obviously, why is it that women are responding this way and talking this way and the men are not? But then I realized that some of the guys I was talking to, like they weren't really like friends. Like the people like doesn't resonate with my reality. Now this was like the start of me a long time ago. So I had some colleagues, some people call them like coworkers, that I realized like my reality, and I'm sure you guys could resonate with this, is that like I like to travel. This is before I started going to Europe often. I used to travel, go to different cities, have new experiences, all that stuff. And the guys who had the same ages with me, same age, would say like, "Wow, how did you get the money to do that?" Or "Wow, like if I had the time, I'll definitely do that." It's like you can, and also you do have to, like we make the same money. What are you talking about? And most of them didn't have kids. But it also made me think about how the mindset works and the paradigm. And that was like, whoa, like if we live in the same physical environment and we work in the same physical environment and we make the same money, why is it that I'm having the experience that they don't? Vice versa. When it comes to money, those finances, right? I used to work really, really hard. I still do, but I thought hard work bring you a lot of money. Because why is it that I'm not bringing a good amount of money, and one of my coworkers who makes the same amount of money got several assets, multiple houses, credit was good, getting like easy loans, and then having renters for his houses. Like he could just retire early. And then I thought he was a drug dealer. And he's like, yeah, everyone thinks I'm a drug dealer. But he's like, Alejandro, just like you, when you go out and you better yourself, like you said, you took a seminar to meet girls and communication and all this stuff. Well, I took seminars on finances and and how to control my money right. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't think like that. I was like, yeah, and it made me think. It's like shit. So so regardless of where you live, it really comes down to what the choices you make and personal responsibility. So then that really clicked for me. So then when I answer your question, when I was seeing these patterns, I'm not happy with it. There's got to be a way, but I had to get out of the way of myself, meaning that I got to stop protecting myself. I got to lose my ego, my pride, and seek help. Why women act this way? Why men this way? Blah blah blah. And I realized that when I started to discover this, I start to filter out the guys that I don't really associate because their reality doesn't fit my reality with respect, right? Yeah, sure, they might have like a house, picket fence, have a wife, kids, whatever. If that's what they truly want, cool, I'm all for that. If that's what they really want, I could respect that, right? Because I can't define their happiness, right? But they cannot bullshit me which most of them bullshit with me later on, that they have all that. But then when I'm in town, when I come visit my hometown or whatever, they really want to hang out with me, and then have to ask like permission from the wife and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my god, like why are you asking permission? And he's like, Alejandro, you like until you have kids or until you're married, you'll understand. I was like, no, I understand. That's why I'm in this position. And I say with respect, I do understand. But why is it that you're super happy when I'm in town? Because why? Because because I'm the guy who could bring girls in our group and have these connections. It's like, dude, I still love you as my childhood friend. Cool, still hanging out. But don't talk about this. Like, don't try. It's kind of like a protection. Like they're trying to what's the word for it? Like they're trying to talk themselves in a way like I made a mistake.
Rationalize
it. There you go. Right? Because a lot of guys want this, right? That's why I say if he's all for that, to have a wife and kids at an early age, it might take offense. Dude, that's cool. But if you did that because you think that your parents want you to do it or the society want you to do that to be stable, and then maybe you wait till you're 45 or 50 or till your kids hit like 20 years old or when they finish college, then you can have fun. But good luck. No, it's not. I'm not saying that it's not too late. I'm just saying that, like, why wait? why wait?
I'd love to, like, how is it possible to know? I found it very difficult in recent years to distinguish between the things that people, family, and friends expect of you and things that you actually want. How do you? Is there a good way you find that you can distinguish those two things? And how do you dig deeper to the thing that you really, really actually want to do, and the way you actually want to live your life? How do you find most men get there?
Let me see. So there's two questions there. Can you repeat the first question? Because they're a good question, but that I could. The first question, which one is that one?
First thing is to distinguish between the things that close relatives and friends and parents might expect of you, and society in general expects of you,
Mm.
and between the thing that you actually really want. And then how do you dig deep enough within yourself to really find the true desire of
Okay.
the life that you want to live?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It really comes down to, now it might sound a little cliche, it really comes down to your authentic expression. So what do I mean by this? So I tell guys too, it's like, because they give me excuses like, Alejandro, I just want to be authentic, blah, blah, blah. And I go like, there's a big difference between being authentic and bullshitting yourself. Being authenticity comes from the expression of love. It can also be your self-love. It can also be your joy. That comes from your innocence. You had this when you were kids. Okay? We can still have it. That's what we can touch in our inner child. When we touch into that, living our authentic life, what truly makes us happy, but it's not you're seeking happiness. Basically, it really, from my journey, my healing journey was like self-love. Because I realized I was lacking self-love. I had women tell me they were in love with me. I couldn't say the same. But it was part of me because it was a reflection. So to answer your question, when no one really like told me like how I should live or just not, I'm very grateful to have a loving mother that she's like, I consider like one of my close friends. We talk. I mean, she even knows like that deep, like where she knows, like she makes fun of me sometimes, like, well, Alejandro, like she knows I had like multiple girlfriends or something like that. And these girls are, they knew like I was very communicative with them at the time, and how things are in our relationships, and so like my mom, like, yeah, in our identities, at certain times she'll be mother and I'll be son, and then there's times that we talk as friends, right? And so then, so when I lived the life I lived in the way that I like to design it, because it was by design, then she really admires that and respects that. So she doesn't give me a hard time. My biological father wasn't really around, and I haven't seen since I was a kid. I had a stepfather, and was very religious, Christian background, and luckily, I have a loving stepfather, so he respect that. He wasn't trying to push anything on me. So, and I'm saying this because that comes with the environment. The environments affect us in our upbringing, and also, believe it or not, environments. If you don't know how to work on your subconscious context, meaning like your paradigm, your program, your design, if you're just leaving it by default, then it's easy to fall into your environment. So your environment, meaning your family too. So if I hate to say this, and hopefully my Korean friends don't kill me for this, but it's common in Korea, like Korean friends. I dated a girl in Korea, like straight up from Korea, so I would know. And I live with a Korean guy too, as a roommate, and there was a pattern as well as Japanese people too, like strict parents that want their kids to. I don't know if you deal with this, Justin, because you're Asian, and so, but strict parents that want their kids to be this way, like to make sure it pays the bills, right? And so I had like a guy who was like, this is related to your question. I live with this guy. I was Airbnb for a while after traveling, being nomadic for a while, and I decided to just get a nice room in this big house. And this guy, yeah, like he was doing Airbnb business and all stuff. But he told me that he went to school to become like, I think it was like an engineer. And I asked him, like, was that your decision? Because he doesn't use that degree. He spent 4 years in college, university, spent all this money. And he goes, was that your decision? Like, well, I thought it was practical. But then I dig in deep and I realized it was like not really his decision. So who it was? I mean, I could take a good guess because as it comes with the environment. Like again, if you just go by default, then your environment would make that decision for you. That environment could be your family, your house, in the household you're in, right? Even if you're growing up, the people that you surround yourself with, that's your environment, can subconsciously influence you really, really easily. Really easily, though. That's why you go to neighborhoods. Why this neighborhood looks clean, the other neighborhood looks shitty, and they're not too far away, right? One of my other mentors, he will call it like the morphic field. It's almost like collective consciousness, right? So there's a natural, like there's a natural influence there, right? I remember I was going to was my ex-girlfriend at the time. We went to Nice. We stayed there for a while, and we went to Monte Carlo. Nice area. Just like in the movies, it's kind of like that. Cops drive convertible BMWs. How about that? I was like, fuck, like it's like you can't. How can you arrest people and put them in the car in that? I mean, arrest me. I want to have a nice ride in that BMW. But I remember so the environment, which also conveys the context of the environment. This is a big takeaway here. There is a non-verbal and agreement in this context, in this environment. What is this non-verbal agreement? That keep it clean, no trash, no crazy stuff, because the cops or some other authority figures out there make sure they're going to keep it clean. It's not family friendly, just keep it clean. I remember there was a soccer, I think it was like what is it? They do it every 4 years, the World Cup. And so we're over there in Monte Carlo, and the World Cup is happening. Some guy, I don't know if they were German or whatever, and the guys are just being rowdy. They were drunk. And then one of them took off his shirt, and they start just doing this, yelling. And then there was a cop nearby, and what did he do? He blew his whistle, and he goes, "Sir, put your shirt back on. Sir, put your shirt back on." And the guy's like, because he's an authority figure, he's going to comply, especially he's in a different environment, he's in a different country. Okay. That was the standard. That's an non-verbal agreement. You see, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's so powerful. Not because he told him what to do. That guy complied. That there is no law that you have to put your shirt back on, especially in France. When the women there, because later on we went to the beach and there's women, they were going topless, right? Because you could go topless there at these beaches in France. And so it's really interesting that they allowed that, but they didn't allow this guy to take off his shirt and he wasn't fat, But what I'm saying is that that's the power of the influence of environment and the context of it. You see that? So I know that's like too deep, but if an environment that's outside the household, like outside the house, could do that to influence a person, can you imagine now inside the house? So you're going to really have to change things in your environment. Once you get out of it, you have to design it. Because even if you're trying to make decisions for yourself, let's say that it's going to be like, say you're lacking on personal responsibility, at least change your environment. This is why like Brotherhood comes in. Your fellow brothers are checking with each other, share ideas, inspire each other, right? You guys will understand that when you communicate with your fellow brothers online, Yes, it has an effect, but let's say you go to a job that you don't like or a town you don't like. That environment could be a lot more stronger, and it will win easily compared to your fellow brothers online, because you might spend an hour here and there with them online, but you spend X amount of hours in your physical environment, which is there's an influence. There is a, like I said, I could go at different angles. One guy that I know was a morphic field. Shout out to Dr. G, Grant Curley. He mentioned that he was the first guy that told me about that. He said that, like, I mean, I'm not going to go in deep about it, but he said that too, like in the pandemic thing, that was a good example of morphic field. Like, because why? Because going back what I shared with you, it was very unpredictable. Not to sound like a conspiracy theory or something like that, but like, I've been aware of this kind of stuff for 20 years, and I always tell myself, I wonder what would happen when it happens to the world. Because I've been in other places where they're trying to spread fear in different places. I was there, the news spread the fear, and I was there, and there was a different reality, right? Like Ebola, they said Ebola, blah blah blah, and it happened in Spain, Madrid, and I was there, and everyone's partying, right? But when I saw what happened, in 2020 and 2021, that was a perfect example. A lot of people were not they were not familiar with this, so it really triggered the reptilian brain. That's a really good example. But also, that's a good example too how environments can influence people. You go to a certain store, because I was 3-4 months behind apparently, because I don't watch the news, and I was in Seattle, and people were just like masking up, laughing. I just came back from Ukraine and spent time with my girlfriend at the time. And then I was like, what's going on here? And I was walking on the sidewalk, and then this one guy was wearing a mask, and then he was afraid to walk by me. And I was like, what's going on? What the fuck? And then I realized what's going on. And I was like, oh, but now I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying that from my experiences, that was an influence. Like, people just comply to whatever is true or not. I don't care. But I'm just saying that there was a natural influence in that environment. But it takes not a strong person, just a guy who has awareness, which we're familiar with that, right? And the viewers out there who's outside the community hear this though. Awareness is one of the key factors we have to understand, right? Because in growth, you need to have awareness. That's the first step. Then after that, you make a decision. If you're aware and you step back, what's actually going on here? Do I really want this in my life? No. What do I do? Should I design it? Okay, but how do I design it? But you at least have to have that awareness. Because if you don't have that awareness, then guess what? You're going to go by default. And that default is going to lead you to the influence and persuasion from your environment.
So to take it even a step further, beyond mustering up the courage to talk to a girl, there's an element of, you mentioned personal responsibility, but also you talk to your childhood friends. I relate to that. Marvin, you have friends and family that you knew from a past life, you could say, where you kind of just live life passively, aspiring for things that you haven't even thought through yourself, that you are only doing because everyone else says you should be doing them, right? When you ask your clients, who made that decision? Did they make it themselves, or did someone do it for them? So there's an aspect, I think, of thinking for yourself. And like you said, awareness is the first part. You have to be aware of the problem. It's a Russian saying. It goes, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. It's the same kind of logic. Because if you don't change your setting and you are surrounded by like-minded people keeping you small, then how are you supposed to evolve to who you know that you can be, in a way? Wanted to build upon your point. See from the same wavelength here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you see how I became, like, as I'm listening to you, but I'm also aware what's going on. And I share with people, and I don't know if you guys experience this, but actually I think you have that feeling. But I had to share what I'm aware of right now as you shared that, which is fascinating. It's also, if you do this correctly, which I teach the guys how to do it, you can also apply to communicate with people, and including girls, which makes things effortless when it comes to getting into some deep conversation. So what you shared, you too have that awareness, right? And I could sense Marvin is resonating with this too. Okay, so our brains are sinking in as one. And we're in a very similar, if not at the same wavelength in our brains. Okay, that is the power of a natural influence within not only your community but in your environment too. Mm-hmm. So, like what you shared with Justin is that it is very important to be consistent, to check in with each other as brothers, because we could lose ourselves. Because it's going to be very hard if we're in an environment that's not serving us very well, that helps us to achieve the life we want. I didn't say money or something. I'm talking just happiness in general. And then the least you could do, the bare minimum, is to check in with your fellow brothers or your friends that could resonate to the desired lifestyle that you want.
Yeah, because we were talking a bit before the call, and we were talking about the phenomenon of the guy that has awareness that his dating life isn't like what he would like it to be. And he comes and takes some coaching from you, from us, and then he gets a solution, goes and finds a girl and goes exactly back to where he started, only to have that fall apart and come back 5 years later and to relate it to environment. That is exactly this, right? Because you expected a different outcome by putting yourself in the same situation as you were in before, instead of changing everything. We talk about renunciation in the Amorati. And actually, so I think you're a genius, and Alejandro's a master, guys, because what you're really saying is you need to change your entire reality. Because if you try to make tiny changes, nothing is actually going to stick, right? You have to change everything. And you talked about brotherhood and accountability. You have to go and get that in the world. It's about shifting the entire way that you understand your reality and taking control of your own life at the root of what you teach. It's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for elaborating for that too. Yes, because what you said, you see, this is what I love about this. You see, so again, I had to bring the awareness to the people who was watching this. This is why I love conversations about this, because what's going on here, it's very similar, if not identical, how we could communicate with women. Okay, is that when I say X, and then there's resonance, and then the person will say Y, there's more resonance, and then it doesn't have to end by X, Y, Z, whatever. What I'm saying is that eventually, over time, like in later on the conversation, I know this is like on a call. There's a limited time, but like let's say this outside the call, this conversation go like way far, and really, really deep. Okay, I had to point that out. But also, when you mentioned about how people, like say take a seminar or coaching, an intensive, whatever you want to call it, and then they go back to their old ways. I had to bring a importance, because see, like this what happened to me a couple times with other guys. They had to fall back, and I check in, but I realized again, my mad scientist self, I don't know what you would call it. Like I had to like be like, I like to go above and beyond, because I want to coach him like the next step, like maybe like your desired relationships, because I can't just teach everything like approaching and relationships and all in 4 days. Like no, like there's a process for that, right? So so I was like, okay, so how do I get him there? Well, then I had to make sure. So get this. There's a big takeaway here, is that you wonder why people go seminar to seminar, they don't really change, or they go seminar or in a intensive or a boot camp, and then later on they come back. Other than their environments, that's just one aspect. Okay, it really comes down to their identity, which also reflects their context. Now, I had to say that I was going to keep it to myself, because I only shared it I think only Serene and someone else too, because I'm writing a program right now, or designing a program, and it really touched on identity. Maybe not in the way other people talk about, but in general, I give it an overview, is that even the question too, think of a time you listen to content, any content, right? I'll give you guys like 5 seconds to think about just the content, right? You read a book, you watch a video, and then you listen, you pay attention, but it didn't click yet. Then half a year later on, a year later on, you listen to it or you read that content and it finally clicked. Okay. Now, if you're working on your growth, this is what's going to happen. When it finally clicks, then rest assured that means that's a confirmation that you shifted your identity. Not only that, you shifted your paradigm and your context. Because that context that you had in the past when you were reading or listening to that content and it just didn't click was because that context cannot resonate with that. An example, before I lose it, it's like, again, those guys that I mentioned about, their context does not match well with my context. How is it possible, Alejandro, you go out and have these experiences and meet girls and you go different places, blah, 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 whatever. How can you afford that, blah, blah, blah? Which it doesn't require a lot of money, by the way, to go to these certain places, right? You guys will know that because you guys travel too. So at that moment, it's because they don't have the right context to listen to what I want to share with them. Okay, so when, as a person that at least keeps evolving and works on the growth, and then they finally click, when they just listen to the same content, the same thing I had to share with them a year ago, and they're like, it clicked. It's because there's a shift. The context was changed. You see, this is very important because guys keep doing, go this, listen this, blah, 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 too much doing, but they're not being that type of person. Then, so when it comes to, and you see, like, thank you. So this is why, again, I wanted to coach guys in the past to move on to something else. Now, I don't mind to coach them again, which didn't happen that very often. But in the past, I had to coach them again, like, hey, I didn't have some touch-ups again on connecting with people and have conversations. Like, that's cool. So I had to remind them. But I know in the brain-based perspective, I had to get them back to the way how they build those neural pathways, which is very similar like salsa dancing, like Latin dancing. If you guys did that, right, the muscle memory will kick in even if you haven't done it for years. So same thing in boxing and wrestling, because I did that, that you build neural pathways. That's why, like in wrestling, like wrestling boot camps, I used to go to those, and you do double unders. Like you just keep going and going, single legs. And you're like, I paid this much money just to do this, is because they want you to make sure you repeat the same thing over and over again and you master it. It's kind of like the Bruce Lee way when he says, like, I don't fear the guy who has 1,000 moves. I fear the guy who did who knows one move, did it 1,000 times. So, in the brain-based perspective, it means that the guy built a neural pathway, and he mastered that, right? So then he could take away from that. He might be hurt. He was away from it, but then once he get back on it, he'll pick it up within a day or two, right? So then I make sure I make guys do these exercises and my coaching process to make sure those neural pathways are built in. So then if I do have to remind them, it's not that long for me to get them to where they need to be within a day, and then moving forward to what I really want to teach them, something like more like advanced stuff, which is more like how to engineer the situations and conversations in a very mindful way. Because that can apply for like sales, that can apply for like getting a new job. Even if you don't have the right resume, you can still get a desired job you want if you could communicate with that person, right? But yeah, going back, it is that context. That's why it's very common that you see guys, especially in this community, they go to a conference or some event, they go back, go back to the old ways. Environments is one of them. But again, they weren't being the right person, meaning AKA they didn't have that subconscious context intact yet. So in other words, they come to a conference with their old identity, with their old context, listening, hearing, and even trying to apply the content, but they're running from their context, trying to do that. That's kind of like a guy who does basketball and trying to do, and he's all about basketball, but someone told him to do wrestling because, it's great for your body, but he doesn't want to do wrestling because his identity is I'm a basketball player. He's trying to do wrestling. He struggles. He's doing the same thing what everyone else does, right? So he's not there. His mind's not there. His context is not there, right? So, and now this might exposing, and it might be counterintuitive, like money-wise, right? A lot of guys come to these programs, they're trying to get girls, and really they're running away from something, and they're operating from the wrong context. So that's why usually now these days I don't take guys who doesn't have the right context. As soon as they're being a type of person who have the characteristics of commitment, self-integrity, at least at the bare minimum, I'll take those guys. Right. But if they don't have that, I just don't want to take them, because what's going to happen is when they get like quote unquote rejected, right? And then they're not happy with the process. They're not having fun. Mm-hmm.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, I would love
It's
to.
the same as saying.
What? Yeah, go ahead, just.
Well, I was saying that's the same as telling a guy that's been eating Cheetos in his mom's basement to say the smoothest pickup line from, like, let's say opening line. Wow, you're fucking hot. It's not who he is. The context doesn't match the content of who he is, right? To provide an example of what you were talking about, from a different way of looking at it. Yeah, it's fascinating, man. You really impressed me, Alejandro. This is incredible. Yeah. Marvin, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had some concrete tips, because I think a lot of guys have that experience, and it also happened to me. Like going back to my home country after you're traveling, you're back in the same environment, same friends, family, same surroundings. So maybe what are some concrete tips that you could give for someone to take more from a conference, from coaching they do with you, to go back and actually build and transform their identity, to have stick more in their life? And you mentioned community, you mentioned environment. What other things are there that guys can do to manifest those things into their identity and accept them as their new self?
Yeah, a really, really good question. That's an important question too. Is that first they need to practice self-awareness at all times. Now, when in any meditation you choose, that helps you to become like in meditation, I learned, but it's also they will share too. Is like just observing your mind. You're observing what is right now, right? So, like maybe in a week or two, like say like habits, right? Because habits help define us in a way. But on the conscious level, like if you're observing your subconscious habits, like you're stepping away, like, wait a minute, I notice I'm doing this again. Why am I doing this again? That's a good way of being like, oh, I am aware of this right now. And then you make a choice. If this habit comes from my old identity, my old self, my old context, that gives me the same results and I'm not happy, what can I do about it? Right? That's the first step. And they have to practice it every day. You can't just do it like in 1 week and you're done. No, you're going to have to consistently do it, right? It might sound like it might be annoying for a while, but over time, it's no different than like learning how to drive a car or doing something new. Again, you're just building those neural pathways, right? You just have to be like, because I took a Joe Dispenza meditation retreat, advanced meditation retreat. And he'll say it too. Like, he's like, the old saying he will say is like, you gotta be unconscious, you're unconscious. Now, people in the neuroscience field, they will say something like that too, right? And so catching your old habits, You have to even journal it too, and even mention that those habits were coming from your old identity, your old context, that those results that does not make you happy. Okay. Second is that this is something I've been designing myself. I'm just working on it right now of a program having, is that there is a list of characteristics of like identity. And I have to be careful with how I say it too, because it might confuse some people. So we have an identities like, okay, so I activated a certain identity before this call. And so you could say I had my certain identity hat on because I had to deal with some people, work related stuff, business stuff, and there being a stress. And so I had to be like, some people might label as a high performer guy. Like, hey, let me take care of this. What can I do right now? Fix this out. But in this call, I changed my hat, put on a different identity now, right? Coach, seducer, whatever you want to call it. In this, right? After this call, let's say if my mom's not here physically, I mean, not in the state, she's in a different state. But let's say I go meet her, I have to put on a different identity. I'm her son, she's my mother, right? There's moments we act like friends too. So we have many identities. But if there's identities that does not serve us very well and we're not happy with, that's when we got to change it up. First is the awareness. What can I do about it? What good habits I need to build? But also, so that's the hard part mostly, how to build these habits. Well, it's the characteristics. So for an example, my characteristics, like say commitment. Commitment was a big deal for me because I used to be in like a 3rd degree black belt in procrastination. Like I was that bad. So to help either neutralize it or eliminate it, or at least at the bare minimum not to procrastinate that much at all, is that I had to develop a like an identity characteristics of commitment. What does a committed person would do, right? Meaning, like, say if he gets sick, I rarely get sick, but let's say if that person gets sick, like when I used to get sick, like it only lasts for like 2-3 days. I'm like a baby. I don't want to do nothing. But a person who's very committed doesn't find an excuse like, hey, I'm not going to do this because I'm sick. No, he's still going to be. I'm still going to execute it. Resilience too was one of them. Not to poke anyone or something like that. Just hear me out, whatever. Like a good example of resilience is like Donald Trump, right? When he got sick, when he said he got sick, then he had that resilience, right? He was a president at the time. This is 2020. Said he had COVID or whatever, and so he could have easily say like, "Oh, I'm sick and calling it a day" or something like that. No, he was actually just doing some paperwork, and he was in this secluded room, right? Not being exposed to people. So that's like resilience. And people in the army, like military, are like kind of like this too, right? They have that resiliency and also commitment. Maybe self-integral too. But the ones I had to build myself was commitment, and also, well, the resilience I had to be careful with that because the resilience it told my body, it put a toll on my body. Meaning, like, even if I was sick or something, I was like, I'm going to do this, but then my body's like, dude, just take a break. So I had to change that and just went to self-integral stuff. But commitment is the biggest one. I think commitment could resonate with a lot of people too, because regardless of your environment, regardless in that, you cannot be in victim mode. You have to be committed. How do I find a way out of this situation, out of this environment? There is a way. It's 2025 too. There's a lot of resources out there.
It starts with awareness, like you said. You got to be aware, and then you got to commit to doing something different than what you were doing before, right? I know you're putting this course together. When will it be ready? When can people expect to sign up? How do we send people your way? Because this is on the forefront. There's nothing like this. This is absolutely completely interesting. I don't know if you have a timeline on it. I don't mean to rush you.
Yeah, really... no. Actually, I'm glad you asked me that because you see, that was part of my personal, not struggle, a personal thing that I needed to work on for myself was like, this relates to dating coaching too. Like, whereas like, people saw something in me and I was just giving results, but then I was like, they're telling me things I didn't see myself, basically, right? And then they were giving me ideas like you should create a product or whatever, and I was like, I don't know, right? And it wasn't because I was self-doubting myself. It had to do with something like in regards to commitment. So, but anyways, the program working on, because I took a long break for a while. It was working on mastery on other things too. I was doing like a lot of meditation, all these other things too. It's really cool. But I needed that because number one, I had the luxury to do that. Number two was like, I really wanted to work on something that I could improve others, even if I had to step back for a while. And so that I have a deadline. I told myself like by the end of this summer that I at least have a program where it's like 6 to 8 weeks. It has to do with like changing your paradigm, your identity, your context. Also, like having. I'm also applying like self awareness, like practical self awareness exercises you could do so you could catch yourself. But also in the background, I'm debating if I should include that in. So I've been learning some modalities like professionally that like address the subconscious mind. One of them I did like 80 plus sessions, like supervised sessions from practitioners, and it was like 2 hours long each session. So you can imagine that much hours. It worked on me, and it worked on like my family too. It's like connecting with your superconscious mind, and so I did offer that to some guys, and then helped them out. Just to give you like an overview, like it helped out like my mom, for example. Like there's these anchors that she was trying to avoid, like an environment, that a physical environment she's trying to avoid, and then when it was worked on her, not by me but my practitioner, then those anchors were no longer there, and I didn't even know that she was avoiding that area for like 20 years. And when she stepped into that area or near, it would cause like these triggers. Now, this is very similar, like in a dating context too. You know, like most guys go to bars and they're not aware that there's these anchors that has an association with a bad memory, right? And so, but this is also I'm going to share with you to answer your question. Just like I was sharing in what I have in mind in the program too is like it comes to the self-awareness portion is that when guys enter venues, a new environment, keep in mind it's unpredictable. It's triggering their reptilian brain. Is that there's an association, usually a negative association, with that certain area, right? So imagine a guy gets X amount of rejections, and maybe some girl told him. Not, I've never seen F offs. To be honest with you, I can't believe why guys say like, you know, they're trying to market as, you know, if you're getting F offs or rejections from girls, I've never seen that in my life, nor the guys I work with or guys who even share with me, right? I don't. Women are not that brutal, but let's say that's something, maybe some extreme, right? Like a fight. Talked to a girl, and then there was a fight. He got beaten up, got embarrassed. So now there's shame. There's public shaming. And shame is the lowest frequency a person could have, right? And so then what happens is it creates a memory. There's an emotion that's attached to that memory. And so then my goal is to make sure that that memory is neutralized. So you cannot remove the memory, but you can neutralize or remove the emotion that's attached to that memory. So therefore, when you go to a similar environment that has associated anchors, it's no longer, well, the anchors are no longer there. It just like, you're just like fresh, you know, you're brand new, right? So, but some guys, believe it or not, they're not ready for that. Not because they're ready for, they tell me they're not ready for it. I share that with them. You know, most guys tend to just run away, trying to fix that's an indicator telling me that they're they're technically they're getting in the way of themselves and trying to fix. That's very general for most guys. Just to fix it all, right? Whereas on the flip side, most women will accept healing that way, right? So they're willing to let go, surrender to the process. So that's why I'm like, should I include this in or not? But at least I give that awareness and share the content for that. And if they're ready, it's like, okay, we could do a private session on that to work on this as well.
That's exciting, man. Exciting.
Mm-hmm. And I'm still doing the dating coaching, like that's my bread and butter, like approaching,
I've seen it. He's the real deal, guys.
Yeah, and I'll share with everyone in the audience too. Like when I saw you guys, and I was like, man, these are the guys I wish I met in my 20s, right? Because I was trying to find guys that I could resonate and just have fun, right? And so, yeah, and so like when you guys saw me what I was doing there, I was like, I had no pressure or whatever, right? Some guys have pressure when they're like, oh, they see me this way, now. I'm not shy about it at all. But it was so fun because it takes me back in the old days where that's what it's supposed to be, just fun. You're learning, you're having new experiences on the spiritual level, like on my healing journey too, is that we're just having a human experience, like we're just infinite beings just having this experience. And I think that's very important to share because I believe because I saw one of your calls when it comes to having new experiences. That's actually like something from our higher self is trying to convey is like, hey, because up there, whatever you want to call it, up there, heaven, whatever, it's all pure love. Because my mom had in the near-death experience, and so I've been looking at near-death experiences, and they have a similar pattern, like a similar experience, and also a similar expression of life when they come back here. And it's very like it's similar, like I said, like, hey, we're just here having human experience, right? So like up there, it's all like abundance, love, om, nothing but om. But over time, when it's too perfect, at some point we're like, hey, I want to have an experience. And to have an experience requires like, limitations and barriers, all these things. But that's the beauty of it because now you get to experience transformation if you're over it. How is a transformation if you didn't experience barriers, setbacks, limitations, all of that? Right?
The greater the dragon, the greater the hero. Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it. So while you're building that course then, and Marvin, I'm curious if you have any closing thoughts. How can people find you to sign up for your dating and approach coaching and boot camps in the meantime?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for right now, because I still have my old website, but I'm working on a new website. I say just for now is that just look at me on social media, just on Alejandro Evolve. I still have my Facebook, but you could find me just on Instagram there. Because I was directed to my old website, but I had problems with that. I was running for a long while, but I was also doing coaching with Amorati, like Ars Amorata. But for me, I would say that until because I'm working on my program and also the website, shouldn't take that long. I think I would say at this point, I'm most likely going to call it Alejandro Ayala Dating. So you could put on those put a web search on that. Just put my first and last name, put dating. You'll find me there. So when the time pops up, you can find me there. But you can easily access me to my social media from right there.
Perfect. And we'll link everything below. Marvin, do you have any closing thoughts before I ask
I just want to say
Alejandro
thanks for coming on and give us your opinions, your time, and I'm really impressed of how deep your approach to dating and life in general is, and transforming guys' lives. So yeah, thank you for doing this, and hope to talk to you soon again.
Yeah, thank you guys, and yeah, looking forward to doing more talks too. I mean, I totally love what you guys doing, and it's needed in this world. And yeah, I'll be more than happy to keep contributing for you guys.
Beautiful. Okay, well, thank you for making the time. It's been great having you, and this has been Alejandro.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.